What's the only difference between a conservative and a liberal? There are quite a lot of videos, TED Talks, essays and etc. out in the internet claiming to have found the difference between the two ideologies. All of them basically suggest that the difference is that liberals are more open-minded than conservatives. Which is true by definition, but I don't think it showcases the actual differences in decision making between the two factions. Today I want to propose a new theory. I call it the free will spectrum theory. Disclaimer: I am not an authority on this issue. Feel absolutely free to challenge this theory and debate me. I'll gladly have a conversation. Before we start, I want to get the definitions out of the way. I'm talking about the American liberal. Normally a liberal would find himself at the center of the political compass, but you Americans pretend he's very left-leaning for some reason. So in the American eyes, a liberal would be here and a conservative would be here. So when I say liberal, I mean progressive. It's just that a lot of people call everyone on the left liberal. We will use these definitions for our baseline. Okay, so here's my theory. It all boils down to free will. The more you believe people have free will and can influence their lives, the more conservative you are. And on the other side, the more you believe we don't have free will, the more liberal you become. Let me explain. First, let's break down the definitions again. Determinism is the belief that all events, including moral choices, are completely determined by previously existing causes. And free will is the power or capacity to choose among alternatives or to act in certain situations independently of natural, social, or divine restraints. In order to come to my conclusion, I look at different cases and how liberals and conservatives approach them. Let me give you a theoretical example. A percentage of people, let's call them X, are in poverty. How do we get them out of that poverty? Liberals currently approach the issue as if it's not the fault of X for their poverty, while conservatives do the opposite. But where can we see this hypothetical example in real life? In the reoccurring Walmart living wage shenanigans. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, every now and then there's a public statement in social media that Walmart workers are unhappy with what they get and demand a $15 an hour salary. A liberal solution to this issue, like some liberal politicians already have suggested, would be to make the company pay more to the worker. A conservative way of dealing with the issue would be to tell the person to get a new job if they're unhappy with what they currently have. The conservative solution places the responsibility in X. You should get a better job. The liberal solution tells X it's not his responsibility. You shouldn't change, they should pay you more. Another example can be the student debt situation in America. A liberal would solve the situation through absolving the debt with taxpayer money. A conservative would suggest to be fiscally responsible, which is a fancy way of saying don't invest money in things that will not make you money. Again, we see that in the liberal way of dealing with the issue, the individual is not the one responsible. In the conservative way of dealing with the issue, only the individual is the one responsible. At this point, you might be asking, but why is responsibility connected to free will or determinism? It's simple. If you're not the one making the choice, or in other words, you didn't have the free will to make the choice, how can you be responsible for it? After all, it wasn't you who made the decision, it was already predetermined. And analogically, if it's you who made the decision, there's nobody else to blame but you. So which one is better? The deterministic one or the free will one? This is up to you to decide. Just don't forget that those are not the only solutions out there. You don't have to always choose between two extremes. That's why this theory is built on a spectrum. There are determined things in our lives that we have zero control over. But that doesn't mean we have no control over our lives. You might have made a decision which will burden you, but that doesn't mean the alternatives were much better. Don't just look at things as if they're black and white. There's always something more.